Hey everyone, welcome back to my channel. Today I'm going over the eight things that you can do to help stick to your budget. Budgeting is something that can be really tricky, hard to begin, and a little daunting, especially when you're starting out and you're trying to get into the swing of maintaining your budget, because it's one of those things that a lot of people will do as like a New Year's resolution, and then a few months into it they'll just kind of stop doing it because it's too time consuming, or they just aren't motivating themselves in the right way. So these are some tips that I use and that I have come up with to help you stick to your budget. Okay, so tip number one is don't use cash. This is something that I do, and Dave Ramsey is probably screaming right now, but I don't use cash because I am very bad at keeping track of it. I'm not someone that can go use cash at a store and then, get a receipt and keep the receipt and keep a record of all of the times that I use cash and how much I'm using. I just don't really have the time, and I just know that that's something that I might be able to stick to for a little bit, but then down the road I'm gonna get lazy and probably not stick to it anymore. So what I do is I always use my credit cards and sometimes a debit card. And when you use these cards, you see right in your statement as soon as you swipe the card how much you've spent and where you spent it. So this way it kind of takes some of the guesswork out of it, and you can just look at your monthly statement to see how much you've spent at certain places instead of trying to go back and jog your memory and keep receipts and all that, because that's just like, no one has time for that. I don't have time for that, and I'm sure many of you don't have time for that. If you enjoy using cash and you'd like to use maybe the envelope method, some other method that you have, that's fine. But for me personally, I just don't use cash because I frankly just don't have the time for it. Okay, so this goes right into tip number two, which is to use an app or service or site to keep track of your finances and the cash flow that you have. So a lot of people tend to use Excel spreadsheets or different templates, or they write it down in a bullet journal or something like that, where they just write down every transaction in each category, so then you can see how much you spent in each category. And it's a little easier to do this if you use credit cards, because again, you can just look it back into your statements and categorize things that way. But I want to take it one step further. So I, again, don't really have free time, and I don't want to spend the free time that I have typing in spreadsheets and looking at my finances like that. It's just so, like, I just want to have it done right there for me. I don't want to have to put in the work, because I'm already putting in work to help keep my budget in the first place and to spend less money and all that. I don't want to spend more time just doing manual things that can be done with a service. And a lot of these services are free, so there's really no reason not to use it unless you prefer seeing it written out or typed in yourself. Then that's completely fine. But for me, I bank with Bank of America, but I know that many other banks do the same thing, so you don't necessarily have to bank with them. But a lot of banks have the same service where you just sign up and you can add all of the different credit card accounts you have, all the different car payments, student loans, and even your utility bills. And you can just put it all into this one cohesive website that will show you how much you've spent total out of all of your credit cards and debit cards and bank accounts, as well as how much interest you've accumulated in different loans, how much in payments you've made to those loans, and it'll show you like your net worth. Looking at that helps me to be very motivated, because I see that my net worth right now is in the negatives. And that's just because I have my student loans that I'm trying to pay off quickly. And when I see every month that I've paid off part of my student loans, when I see that net worth going up a little bit and getting closer to the positive side, it just makes me so motivated, because I hate seeing that financially I'm worth less than zero. I mean, I just don't like the idea of having debt, especially student loan debt. So that's something that I've used to help motivate me and to make things easier to see all those finances. So I'll put some screenshots of the Bank of America service that I use. Obviously, I'm gonna blur out all of my personal info, but you can kind of see. So you can go in and set a budget. There's a separate section for budgeting specifically. So from there, you can say, okay, I want to spend $200 on restaurants. I want to spend $200 on clothes and whatever. You categorize it however you want. And it will take all the transactions you have from all your different cards and all the different ways that you pay for things, except for cash. And it will categorize it for you automatically. So let's say you buy a $30 purchase at H&M. So that'll show up right on your credit card. And then if you have that credit card attached to this Bank of America service or whatever service, then it will just automatically code that as clothing because it knows that H&M is a clothing store. And it'll do that for all your different purchases. So you don't have to go in and calculate things yourself and categorize things yourself. It'll just automatically be there. And if, say, you purchase something and you want to categorize it as something else and not what it automatically coded it as, you can easily go in and change it. You can make your own different categories, and it's just very nice the number of features you have and the amount of things that you can change within the service and just really make it your own. So every month when I do my monthly spend videos, which I will have linked up here if you haven't seen them, it's I just basically go through this site at the end of the month and I will see how much I spent in each category. So I don't have to spend any time putting things in manually because it's just all there right in front of me. I just open up my computer and there it is. And that also makes it easier halfway into the month when you're like, I don't know how much I've spent on restaurants, if I can afford to go maybe one more time this month or what have you. So you can just log in and it'll tell you exactly how much you spent so far in that month or whatever time period you want to set it to. And there you go. So this is especially helpful for people like me who like to use multiple credit cards for credit card churning, as well as multiple bank accounts for the same reason. So I have about 6 active credit cards right now. And I do not want to be going into each statement and looking into each transaction of all those credit cards. That would just take so much time. This just makes it super easy for me, and it makes it much less harder for me to want to quit or give up because it really doesn't take much time. Okay, my third tip for you is to not cut things out of your budget that you tend to use regularly before your budget. Like, some people will go in, especially with New Year's resolutions, people just go in and they just make these grand plans to get rid of something or to stop doing something. And a lot of the time, New Year's resolutions don't stick because it's unrealistic. There's no room for error, or maybe you indulge yourself one day in something and then that'll just ruin the whole streak that you have going. So instead of just trying to cut out something from your budget when you are starting a budget, is to just start by decreasing the amount that you spent money on. So for example, I'm trying to stop going to restaurants so much. I haven't really gone to restaurants too much to begin with, but when I set my budget, I was like, okay, there's definitely ways that I can lower the spending even more, save more money, and pay off my student loans faster. So that was my thing. I wasn't like, okay, I'm gonna just stop going to restaurants altogether. Because yes, technically you can do that. You can just cook at home every day, and that's great if you can, but most people can't do that. And they might really push themselves to, but maybe one day your friend wants to go out and you don't want to say no, so you go out to a restaurant and then there you spent 30 bucks on food, and then your whole budget's just ruined because you spent that money when you said you weren't going to. And then that's why people end up forgetting their budget. They're like, okay, you know what, this is too much for me, I'm not gonna do this anymore. So instead of trying to quit something cold turkey like that, especially something that you tend to use, whether frequently or infrequently, try to just limit yourself instead. I set my restaurant budget to $100 a month. That's a pretty tight budget, but for me, that's perfect because a lot of the time I do cook at home. But there are some days where I will just have a really bad day at work or just be swamped, and I just don't have the energy to cook, and I just really don't want to cook. Or sometimes on a weekend I just want to have like a date night and go out to a nice restaurant. So by setting these limits, I'm able to plan out my month better and say, I only have $100 to spend on restaurants and I really want to go to this nice place for an anniversary or whatever. So I'm just gonna try my best to not go out so much this month and just save that $100 for that special occasion. Or, you know, something like that. Because then you're not limiting yourself too much, but you are kind of taking a step back and seeing where you can decrease your spending. So that's one of the things that I do, and so far I've been able to stick to my budget very well, and I think that you can too if you just learn to limit your expenses instead of cut them out completely. My fourth tip is to look at your past month statement and your previous statements in order to set your budget. So this is for people who don't have a budget yet, but I think that one of the most important things to do is, instead of just come up with these random numbers that you think will work for your budget, actually look back at those statements and look back and see how much you've been spending. Because it's really, really hard to guess how much you spend on restaurants or clothes or whatever every single month. It's a lot easier, and it just makes a lot more sense if you go in and see what you've done previously, see where there's room to improve, and then base your new budget off of that. So, tip number 5 is to not be afraid to change things around in your budget if you are seeing that something's not working for you. It would be really great if you could just create a budget, stick to that budget, and never move anything around because it's just perfect the way it is, and there is nothing that would make things easier or would help you save a little more money. You just have a perfect budget to begin with, nothing wrong with it at all. I don't think this is very common. I think most people, they set a budget and they do the best they can with it by looking at the previous month's statements, by trying to limit themselves in certain categories. But as you keep using this budget, as months go on, you might realize, you know what, I could actually save a little bit more money on clothes. I actually don't buy this much clothes, and this is a very easy thing to stick with. So you know what, I can lower it 20 bucks a month and be perfectly happy. Or you know what, this groceries, I can't spend $100 a month on groceries. That's just not realistic for me, and it limits me from being able to buy healthy food and vegetables, and instead I have to buy mac and cheese every month because that's all I can afford on this budget. That's no good. It's better to look back and think, okay, you know what, I can raise my limit for groceries every month, because you really don't want to be sacrificing your health and your safety just to keep this budget that you created. So it's okay to go in and change things around, and budgets can be really fluid. There's always room for improvement, lifestyles change, and it's good to take a look at it every so often and think, okay, this is not working for me, this is working for me. And then eventually you will have your perfect budget, because when you are trying out different things and you are really working at it, you will create a really good budget and you'll stick to it, and it won't be any issue trying to stick to it because you'll just get used to it and it'll just fit your lifestyle perfectly. And no one can do that for you. That's something that you have to do yourself, because no one spends money like you do. Everyone's different, everyone has different priorities. So yeah, just don't be afraid to change things around if you need to. So my 6th method is to keep a vision board. So a lot of people have vision boards, and it seems a little bit cheesy, but I think that it really can help you, especially certain people who like being reminded of things and just seeing the visual in order to be motivated to stick to something. Is to, yes, have a vision board. Just have it like at your desk or near your bed, somewhere that you would see it all the time. You know, you can cut out pictures of magazines and print out things on the internet, or, you know, write yourself little things that will help remind you of why you are setting this budget in the first place. Whether it's to get yourself out of debt or to save for a large purchase like a house or a car. So for example, once I pay off my student debt, I'm going to be trying to save for a down payment on a house. That's my next step. So if I were currently saving for that house, I would have a little board, print out pictures of houses that I really love, or just things from like Pinterest, and it would just be a constant reminder of why you are doing it. Because sometimes keeping a budget is not easy. It's very tough, and it's easy to get unmotivated when you see your friends having fun and you get that FOMO and you just really, really want to not be, you know, pinching and saving as much as you are. But you can do it however you like. You can even set something as like your phone background. So every time you see your phone, you get reminded, okay, yes. Another idea you could do is if you keep like a normal wallet, just take a little picture of whatever it is that you're saving for, or, you know, your lifestyle that you're trying to achieve, and stick it in your wallet. Because when you're at the store with your friends and you're trying to talk yourself out of buying something, but you're kind of pressuring yourself to purchase, you will open up your wallet to pay for that item, and then you'll get a little reminder of why you are saving and what you could achieve by saving that money. And then that could maybe make you change your mind and say, you know what, I really don't need that blouse today. I'd rather use that money to save and invest. So step number 7 is kind of similar to this, and it's to keep a visual debt tracker. So this isn't a visual of the goals you're achieving, it's the visuals of how much you are achieving, if you know what I'm saying. So for me, I have this little debt tracker on my planner, and every time I pay $100 of my loan, I take a little highlighter and I highlight each denomination. And then you see me getting closer and closer to the end goal, and it's just really nice to be able to see that visually because it shows you how far you've come. It just feels really good to like check things off and to highlight these numbers. So that's like enough motivation for me to want to pay it down. I pay personally between $1,000 and $1,500 a month towards my student loans. So being able to cross off those little $100, it just feels really, really nice to do that. And so that might be something that you could use, or something similar. Like you could have a tracker of your savings or your investments, and every time you deposit $100 or $1,000 into your bank account, it's another highlight on your tracker. My 8th tip for you to maintain your budget is to auto deduct from your paychecks into your savings account or your student loan account, or just some other separate account that you have. So if you work like a full-time 9-to-5 job, you most likely have a 401k plan, or you auto deduct for your health insurance. And at least for me, I don't even notice that it's gone because it's just, I don't see it leaving my paycheck. I just get a paycheck and that's the amount that I have. So when you auto deduct, it kind of takes that feeling away where you feel like you're losing money and it's going away. Once you get used to that deduction, you'll just see your paycheck as your paycheck, and you won't realize that your money is actually being invested and is being put away elsewhere. So I really, really like having the ability to deduct certain expenses from my paycheck. So with my job, I can go into the website and I can set up my direct deposit, but you can set up multiple direct deposits. So you can have some percentage or dollar amount going into your checking account, and then a certain percentage or dollar amount going into your savings account. And what I do is I have a high interest savings account, and what I do is I set aside a certain percentage of my paycheck to go directly into that high yield savings account. I don't have to manually do it. I'm not feeling the pain of parting with my money like that. It's just being set aside, and then I leave it alone. I don't even look at it. So this is used for my emergency fund and also used to then later invest. But yeah, I've gotten used to just seeing my paycheck the way it is, and the paycheck that I see is the amount that goes into my checking account. So I really forget the fact that part of it's not in there and it's somewhere else, if you know what I'm saying. So if you have the option to auto deduct like that, I definitely would, or to auto deduct it to go into your student loan account or your car payment account or whatever. So yeah, that's it. Those are my 8 tips for you to keep your budget and to stay motivated. Please let me know if any of these tips helped you, and comment below if you have any tips of your own that you use that you'd like to share. I would love to hear it, and I'm sure everyone viewing this would like to see it as well. Also, please make sure to subscribe to my channel and hit the bell icon if you'd like to be notified every single time I post. I post every single week, and most of the time I post twice a week, Tuesday and Friday. I plan on doing more of these personal finance budgeting videos and then moving into things like investments. So please subscribe if that's something that you'd be interested in. And yeah, thank you so much for watching if you've made it this far, and I hope to see you in my next video. Bye.